think outside the box, if you will. I mean, go there, go off campus. Let's think this through. And sure enough, that's where the Mustang was born. When it finally hit, it took the country by storm.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. You know, this is the Motor City, and this is the show where we put cars into the context of your everyday life. We hope to entertain you and have a little bit of fun at the same time, but we will make no apologies for our decidedly Detroit perspective. Today we've got a show for you that'll talk about your trip around town, your trip across the country, and how it's impacting your wallet. In fact, we're going to talk today about the dirty little secret behind toll roads. And all across the United States, there's all kinds of initiatives to start putting tolls on the roads that we drive on every day. These are roads you've already paid for, and your gas tax is already paid to upkeep. But you know what? The government's got a new idea on how they're going to pay for things, and we're going to unleash that little secret on you. And to do that, we've got our own automotive expert, the guy who founded and edits thevirtualdriver.com. We're talking about Chris Sawyer. Chris, thanks for
go away.
Thanks for coming on. Carsincontext.com is the place where I'd love to have your blog. Unfortunately, thevirtualdriver.com is the place where you do all of your wonderful work. And we're looking forward to what you're going to share with us about toll roads and some of the things that the government's getting into as far as privacy goes and restricting us goes. And we're going to have a very interesting show. But before we do that, folks, it's time to find out what's in the news. So, Chris, I'll start it off, and I'll ask you a question, and to you folks at home. Folks, do you remember the Ford Escort?
Yep.
All right, the Ford Escort is back, except it's not in America. That's right, seems Ford has resurrected this wonderful little nameplate, which we all remember from back in the day, and it's on a brand new contemporary sedan. It would be called a compact, I guess, and it's going to go on sale in 2014, but folks, you cannot buy it here. You can only see it in China, where the small car nameplate remains, Ford's calls untainted. You know, Ford showed this car described as a concept at the Shanghai Auto Show, and they said the Escort will go into production. It's not a concept. This car is what it's going to look like, and it'll only have maybe some minor changes.
Car?
Yeah, and underneath though, they say the mechanical package is borrowed from the second generation Ford Focus, which is the previous one that we had here.
Okay.
But you know,
which
so that
explains why it's smaller.
And it can be made cheaply because it's technology that they've had for a while.
But it's untainted, huh?
It's untainted.
Unlike that
you know,
dog and cat food they send us.
That's right, or their drywall, or their toothpaste.
Amazing.
Why does Ford believe that the Escort? I mean, there were some things with thick film ignition. There were some recalls. The cars, you know, but every car's had that.
Exactly, and you know, look. Quite honestly, I think there's been a history in this industry of changing the name every time they run into trouble, instead of just sticking with it.
Yeah.
It'd be like, you know, if you were Bill Clinton the first time you got caught with somebody who wasn't your life, you'd now be Bill Smith. And then you'd be Bill Jones.
I knew that was going to happen. Chris, why don't you take one of our headlines today and go after it before we name the next Ford Pinto, which is on my.
There you go.
That's right. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so electric vehicles aren't selling.
We know that.
So what do we want to do there? We got to have clean air. We got to have all this future tech. Hey, fuel cells.
Come on, Chris. How could that be in the news?
Well, Hyundai says that they're going to make something called the iX35.
Of course,
why
it's going to
can't
be
we have
that.
names?
I don't know.
And in the U.S., it's going to be based on the current Tucson CUV platform.
Oh, the Tucson. Okay.
They're a Ford Escape-sized little thing.
They want to do a fuel cell version?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's going to have 34 horsepower, have a range of 370 miles, which is better than your EV.
Yeah, that'll be
for the most
okay.
part.
Okay.
But same problem. Where do you refuel it?
A fuel cell? A hydrogen station.
Okay, George Jensen, you call me when that's ready.
Okay.
Honda has got their FX Clarity.
That's right. They've had that for years.
Since 2008. They've sold
40 of those.
40. Now,
right, so why are they not selling?
Well, here's the thing. Well, where do you refuel them for one thing?
Well,
although it does make sense. The fuel cell out of all the EVs out there makes a hell of a lot of sense because you drive it the way you drive a car now.
Yeah.
You drive it, you deplete it, you put the hose in, you fill it up, you drive it, you deplete it, you put the hose in. That's the way we're used to. We're not sitting there to drive it, plug it in, wait 26 hours or whatever it's going to take, and go on your way. So that makes a lot of sense, but it's not ready yet. I mean, we're moving really fast on the fuel cell technology, to the point where it used to be $150,000 for each fuel
Yeah,
cell
yeah.
in the car.
But Chris, they say they want this car by 2014.
Well, they will be able to produce it, sure, no problem, but they're not going to sell very many of them. And the silly thing about it is that automakers went after fuel cells really hard the first time because they thought, if we can build this car that only thing that comes out of the tailpipe is water vapor, people won't be talking about cars and pollution. No, they'll be talking about something else. Your problem, your freedom. So
Yeah.
they don't want that.
Yeah, well, Daimler, Ford, and Nissan have all banded together because they can't do it by themselves. And then Toyota and BMW are working together. So clearly, it's going to take a lot of brain
It's gonna
power to
take
get
a
this
lot
done.
of work,
So
yeah.
don't plan on finding that fuel cell in there right off the bat. And then even worse, once you do buy one, try to find a refueling stop. That's-
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, listen, I have one. Now, did you watch, remember the show we did, folks, on small pickups, and Chris Sawyer was here? Well, guess what? Maybe GM North American President Mark Russ saw the same show. You know why? Because he just said to reporters that because of rising fuel prices and the fuel economy targets, GM may consider making a new small pickup. In fact, they were going to they originally abandoned the idea of doing a new Colorado and Canyon. Just said there's no market for them. You know, sales are low. Ford got rid of the Ranger. We did a story on that. But now GM's going back and saying, you know what? If you do a truck and you do a really good one and it has different powertrains and better fuel economy, there might be a market for that. Imagine that.
Well, good luck with that. I mean, Toyota's got the Tacoma, and
Yeah.
certainly, I hope this one has a bigger door opening.
Well, this one is actually going to be bigger than they say both the Colorado and Canyon are going to be bigger than the Tacoma. And
all I care about is that the body opening is bigger because
Oh, yeah,
the
you
aperture
bang
is
your-
so small.
yeah.
I have a hard time getting that.
And the rumor also is that Chrysler is also reconsidering a small. So thanks for watching Cars in Context, you guys at the auto companies, and maybe we'll get
I
some.
wish I'd produce that M80 concept.
Me too.
Oh.
Well, do you have another one for us?
Yeah, well, you know, let's did you watch the show on diesels?
I love that show. You had the Volkswagen,
The Touareg.
The Touareg here. We talked about diesel technology. It's a great show. It's on YouTube.
Yes. That was one of our lost
Lost
videos.
episodes. Yeah,
It looks like they're starting to catch on, that people are starting to say, hey, you know what, this makes sense, especially if you've got a truck, an SUV, something like that, you need to, or you do a lot of travel.
Right.
They make an awful lot of sense. The biggest problem right now is that in this country, unlike everywhere else in the world, diesel costs more than premium. Everywhere else, it's the price of regular
It is
gas.
more expensive. But
So that sort of holds it up. But that hasn't stopped people. They've the market for clean diesel sales is up 25% as of last winter.
wow.
And that it's still a small fraction of the market, but that it should nearly double by the end of this year, and diesel sales should reach almost 1 million by the end of the decade.
You know, Chris, you said, and I know that show was maybe more than a year ago we did, but you said, you know, watch this market because even though the fuel is more expensive, the vehicles can tow. The technology's there where they have all the power in the world, and they give great mileage.
Here's the really funny part about diesels. Okay, we've got particulates that we have to worry about, and we are cleaning those up. But when you're not running a diesel under full throttle, under a full load, they have a lower carbon dioxide output than any other internal combustion engine out there. So actually, if we could meet any CO2 standards we currently have on the books that we're thinking about if we just went to diesels.
See, they're getting a bad rap. Very good item there. And I got one for you. You're going to love this, Chris.
Okay.
Folks, you know that our weight gains are not only killing us, but did you know that they're also killing your car's fuel economy? That's Allstate, the insurance company, did a study that says overweight Americans are adding their extra pounds to their new lighter weight cars, and then that's hurting the auto industry's efforts to fuel economy.
No, it's not.
That's what I'm telling you.
No, it's not.
No, wait a minute.
And I will take care of that right here. Because
you're
that
fatter.
Yes, you're fatter,
fat.
and in the real world, sure, it goes down.
No,
but where the way the car industry is measured is on corporate average fuel economy,
Yes.
and that's based on the sticker.
Well-
and they don't put Roseanne Barr in the
Okay,
car
well, here's the
when
deal.
they're doing this.
For you Roseanne Barr fans, let me apologize.
Oh,
but let me
don't.
tell you this. I know this is coming from thevirtualdriver.com, but this one came from your favorite Consumer Reports, who did a study back in 2010 that said the auto insurer that says that 1 billion extra gallons of gasoline were burned each year between 1960 and 2002 because of our growing waistlines, and I'm at fault. And that evidence, and in fact, a Gallup poll last year showed that the Americans' average self-reported weight grew by 20 pounds since '90. Now, that's a very small. 20 pounds is small compared to a 4,000-pound car. But they did a study that said This natural push towards reduced carbon means every ounce adds up. And scientists
Okay,
say
now I'm gonna,
that the vehicle...
scientist, my eye.
They
let
say...
Me, let me just hit you with this one. CO2 is a problem, right? Okay. The ice age. You look at the ice cores that they pulled up.
Yeah.
The CO2 levels were 1,324 parts per million during the ice age. They didn't have SUVs. They didn't have cars. They had nothing of the like, and it's 3 times higher than the number that they currently say, if we tip over that, we're going to have uncontrolled global warming.
Well,
BS. It's the sun.
Well, vehicle fuel economy, if it drops as much as 2% for every 100 pounds, folks, go on a diet. Do your car a favor.
No, I like to eat.
All right, for me, rather than me going on a diet, I'm
As
just
I tell anybody who looks at me on this show,
Yeah.
you know, the camera puts on the 10 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you how many cameras are on me, okay?
well,
That's all there is to
if
it.
you want a better solution, take your hockey equipment and the patio blocks out of your trunk. You'll save the space.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we'll get back
Or the
to
body.
We'll put Chris in the driver's seat for the topic of the day on the toll that toll roads are taking on our wallets right after this message. Come on back. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. Today's show is going to be a story about what impacts your wallet when you go on vacation and travel across the country. Luckily for us Michiganders, we don't have this problem as of yet, but it is going to be a problem. So we brought in our expert, Chris Sawyer, founder, editor, thevirtualdriver.com, my favorite blog in all of the World Wide Web. Chris, this little topic today is one that really peeves me personally. And the reason I say that is because I think by the time we end up with this discussion, it's going to be much broader than just the fact that if you go on a road or you go on a highway, the government wants to get some money out of your pocket for using a road that you'd paid for with your federal tax dollars and you've paid for with your gas tax, and they've decided to tell you otherwise. And we're here to tell the dirty little secret about toll roads, folks. And let's start at the beginning, Chris. You know, back in the day when cars were only owned by rich people, and only the wealthy had them.
Was that the 1%?
The 1%. That was a good idea to have a toll road because roads were just mud.
Right.
And so some entrepreneur would say, hey, look what I want to do. I want to get a team of people. We're going to put boards down, and you pay me a few bucks. We'll make a turnpike, and you can drive this next stretch for no flat tires, and you give me a couple, whatever it was.
And turnpikes made sense, and they still do make sense because you're paying for them with the tolls.
Right.
They shouldn't be getting federal highway dollars or even state highway dollars at that point because they should be paying for themselves. Otherwise, get rid of the toll.
But, you know, as you guys know, Mr. Henry Ford decided for the $5 a day wage, a 40-hour work week, he thought maybe cars should be afforded by everyone instead of just rich people. So the Model T came out and everybody could buy one, and we all started driving every which way, even when there weren't roads. So we started building roads like crazy, and we soon realized that roads were something that the government needed to be involved with. We had the Lincoln Highway. My favorite is Route 66. Every time I go down the interstates, I try to break off of the interstate to get back on the old Route 66.
I hate to say I've never been on Route 66.
That's worth paying for, but the problem is just getting there is going to cost you some tolls. And as you go into other states, everybody knows about the Ohio Turnpike. You've been to the Pennsylvania Turnpike, but as you go down south into the Southwest, there's a revolution taking place about toll roads. And the reason we're bringing this up today is because we need to get to the bottom of what's happening with the latest things that are happening in Arizona. We all know about California, Chris. They had, you know, folks, you had high occupancy lanes in California for years because of the massive traffic jams, right? And you couldn't. The idea was, we'll make a special lane for people that have more than 2 people in the car, 2 or more, so you can drive in the lane. You can see by this picture that there's no traffic there. But if you're driving by yourself,
But there's the problem, John.
What?
There's no traffic there. It's not being used.
well,
It's not
people
being
didn't want to drive
utilized.
with somebody else because they were.
And what
talking
did they do? They got mannequins and blow-up dolls and everything else, and they put them in the car so that they didn't get a ticket.
Okay, well that's true.
Don't you know, they're
No,
like people trying
so
to escape from prison.
Well, here's what has happened over in California. So now that they got this lane, which Chris has pointed out is useless, it doesn't really save anything. It doesn't work the way they intended it to because they're trying to force you into behavior that you don't want to do.
Right. Well, Cindy and I go to her sister's in Virginia all the time, and they just put in a new toll road there. And what did it do? It made congestion worse. This is, I mean, I'm sorry.
They don't have your best interests at heart.
No, they don't.
Or they
This
don't
is
care about the environment.
Ronald Reagan was right. The 9 words you have to be most scared of are, we're from the government, we're here to help.
That's right.
You can study everything until you're blue in the face, and you know what? People will find a way around it, and scientists usually make things worse.
And the government will find a way to make some money. So that's why we wanted to talk about what happened in California. They instituted the fast track system where they put a transponder on your car, and then as you drive down the highway now, you can use these lanes and pay for it. Pay for the privilege of using a lane that's maybe less congested. And then, so if you go past, say every few miles they put in a reader, and it charges your credit card some money. So now...
Which would have made a lot of sense if they put in a new lane and they did this.
Correct.
But when you're taking lanes away from existing
you're just
infrastructure...
making the traffic worse.
Exactly.
So,
well, I don't think that that's not part of the reason. This is part
they
of...
want you, because if you...
This is behavior control.
Right, they want you to get more of you into that lane so you pay more.
Exactly.
Now here's the nasty little secret about these systems. They can time you from one pay station to the next. And that means if you were going 56 miles an hour and then the speed limit was 55, they know exactly what time you should be there. If you get there early, you were speeding, you can get a ticket in the mail. You can get, and so you can get a...
You know who else does this? Britain. Britain has cameras everywhere. They have more cameras per capita than any country on the planet. In fact, than the 3 top countries below them on the planet.
Well, I don't want you to get me started on cameras because we're going to do
but
a whole
it's
show
same,
on the red light
exactly.
camera
It is
phenomenon.
the same idea that they can tell you exactly how fast you're going, where you should be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Here's the thing. Speeding is not by itself the problem. What's the problem is that they are setting the speed limits too low. The number is, it's the 80% rule, and that is the speed limit should be set at the speed at which 80% of the drivers are going. And in Michigan, that's about 84.5 miles an hour, which is fine with me. But then they started this behavior modification business, and we're going to tell you what to do and how fast you should be going. If you look at Southfield Freeway, when it was put in the 50s, it was designed for 120 miles an hour. Have you ever gone 120 miles an hour down Southfield Freeway? Now, granted, we have a lot more traffic on it now, and I can say that I actually have done that, but I won't tell you when, or when I will do it next.
Could have been an hallucination, officer.
It's very possible. But the roads are designed for higher speeds.
But understand, they were built in the 50s, and the cars not only are the roads more capable now, the cars are so much more capable.
The drivers aren't.
Well, and in Germany on the Autobahn, the reason why there is no speed limit, you drive to the right as you go slower.
No. There's a speed limit on the Autobahn. Most of the Autobahn has speed limits on it now because the Greens came in and said, you know what? You're killing the forests. You're killing the forest because of this. Well, now, granted, there are some parts that are still unregulated, and if you get to Germany, you can drive on the unregulated Autobahn. All I can say is, do it.
It's worth it. Now, here's what's happening. This little idea of tolling you, charging you for driving on our roads that you paid for with your money already, is going to Arizona. Now, Arizona, the people there are so upset. They're going to take every freeway, the 10 and the 101 loop, everything coming in and out of Phoenix, and make it a toll road, so you have to charge your credit card to just drive on it. Now, your tax dollars paid for that interstate highway system. We might mention, by the way, that when Mr. Eisenhower went over to Europe, during the war.
Eisenhower would be just...
Yeah, he decided we needed an interstate. This is not American. We need a system of free roads in the United States.
Well, yeah, but you know why? He wanted that system. The same reason the Germans wanted it, to move troops.
To move troops back. Well, thank goodness.
That's why the bridges are as tall as they are, because it's big enough that it would be able to get the missiles of the time underneath them.
So that government action, if you will, creating our interstate highway system, was what gave us our mobility. And your freedom to move about is the #1 way to control a society. You know, back in the day, before we had cars, we grew up in a little town up in the thumb of Michigan, raised our potatoes and our family, and died and was buried up there because we couldn't move around. Now with cars, you can go anywhere in the United States within 3 days.
Politicians don't like that.
They don't like the mobility part, but that's the core to your freedom. And for you to have to pay for something that A, your tax dollars built, B, you pay between 17 and 35 cents every gallon you use for your tax dollars to pay for the gas tax, to pay for the upkeep of the road. But what happened, Chris? These millions of dollars were put into these gas tax funds.
And it was siphoned off.
And it was piling up. So somebody in the government at one time, 10, 15 years ago, said, gosh, we can't build roads this fast. They don't need this much upkeep. What are we going to do with these millions of dollars?
But the
Well,
thing
let's
is,
put them in the general fund.
those roads did need upkeep, and
I
they
know.
didn't do it.
They didn't fix your infrastructure, so
And
they
they
took
stole
your
from you.
money
They
and gave
stole from you.
people entitlement programs and things. Oh, let's spend it on this or this. Look at all this money we have.
What does this remind you of? Social Security?
It's
There
what-
is no lockbox.
I'm telling you, this is the dirty secret of toll roads.
They
Folks,
used it for mass transit subsidies. We're paying, your gas tax is paying for that bullet train in California. It's paying for the Woodward connector that they want to do here.
all
of
the
that
things
stuff.
that was supposed to
For
do was
bike
just keep your
paths.
road. You're handing over your cash,
But
and
I've
it's
got-
not fixing your roads.
But
Chris.
it's worse than that. The Government Accountability Office. Now there's a name that should scare the hell out of you. The Government Accountability Office. The
Who's
GAO.
accountable?
They say
Who's accountable in
that
the
they
government?
want to tax motorists for every mile you drive.
Right.
Here is one of their plans. GPS surveillance devices in your car or another less invasive technology that will double the amount that they currently get in federal taxes, the gas taxes. Why? Because the CAFE standards, you were just saying that we're losing our mileage. We've increased the mileage on cars so much that they're not making enough money. I didn't know the government was supposed to be a profit-making deal to begin
Exactly
with.
right. It was for the people, by the people, of the people. What
So the
happened to that?
mileage is up, but the dollars are down.
Well, folks, we need to bring this out into the open because as Arizona battles this fight and other states, Michigan's looked at charging tolls. Here is the big question. You've spent this money for years. You've generated billions of dollars that your government did not reinvest in your roads. Now they're coming to you and saying, oh, we're out of money. You're going to have to pay for them if you want them fixed. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just like sending your kid off to college, giving him his tuition money, and a month later he calls you and say, Mom and Dad, I need my tuition money. And you say, I gave you the money. And he said, no, I spent it on beer
And chicks.
and chicks.
I got
Our
one-
government has spent your gas tax on beer, essentially, and they did not spend your money, or whatever they spent it on, and they did not spend it on fixing the roads.
And they didn't even
now
do-
they're lying to you on the government website and saying there's no money in the well, because you siphoned it off and used it for entitlement programs. We don't have the money.
Exactly.
So is that something you have to pay for again? That's the question.
And here's two things that you want to know. In Germany, they have 700,000 truckers that carry tracking devices. Jawohl, mein Führer. And so that they can collect $5 billion in mileage tax. But here's the thing. The administration and enforcement costs are $1.5 billion, or 33% of what they
That's
take in.
ridiculous.
And don't forget this. Tolls are a way for politicians to avoid having to ask the electorate for more money, and it removes the barrier for regular increases.
Right, that's the problem. That's a financial threat to you that won't go away. And even on your GPS it says, do you want to avoid toll roads? And my answer is yes.
There's
because-
no yes, and there's a no, a yes, and there should be a hell yes.
Now, one more thing before we're going to have a whole nother show on something that's called another invasion of privacy. It's something that's called black boxes, and now the insurance companies are clicking in into your OBD.
I've actually got one, but because I've got press cars, my actual car sits there. And so
Oh my goodness!
my
Well, you're
insurance
making
is
money.
going
Well, I know that Progressive has something called Snapshot.
down. Allstate has one that's
And
called Dry
folks,
Safe.
we're going to do a show on that to talk to you about how this financial threat is actually going. There are people that are trying to hack into their Snapshot to falsify the information so they get cheaper car insurance rates. It's a really
It's
really
costing us all money.
and as our toll roads. But Chris, we have no more time to talk about that. But come back and talk about that again. Thanks for that, because now
welcome.
it's time for one of my very favorite segments on the show, and that's called Pride in My Ride.
Well, who's it going to be today?
Well, Pride in My Ride, the rumor is that Pride in My Ride today is a car that that this guy next to me knows all about.
Oh, I know
And
this car
Chris, why
very
don't you
well.
take us through Pride in My Ride, and what is it?
This car is my brother Bob's Jaguar. Bob doesn't even know this.
Oh, thanks.
This car he found on a test trip that he did out west.
Oh, my.
And he had shipped back, and he said it's really good shape. It's been out. It's not rusty. In fact, it won't take me that long to get it up and running, and it'll be a driver. And so I went to pick it up at the moving place, and I was telling the guy all of this, and he goes, "I hope you and your brother are close." And just that, I came around the corner and saw this absolute wreck of a Jaguar, which was not rusty.
No,
but
but
now he's got it painted. That's the old bonnet sitting next to it. That's got all the more Bondo in it than Cher. And it's been a lot of work and a lot of time, and it's finally going to be getting on the road pretty soon
when do you
here.
think?
I
Maybe-
think if not this year, certainly by next summer,
Oh,
we'll be
Bob
on the road
Sawyer,
with that
please,
thing.
Bob Sawyer, spend
It's
some evenings.
gorgeous.
Get out of
That
those.
opalescent blue, which was done by Chris Hadaka out in rural Michigan, is beautiful.
We'll look forward to a new one when he gets it done. Folks, if you have a car you want to be featured on Pride My Ride, send it to me, J. Clor at carsandcontext.com. But Chris, the rumor is we have another part of the show that I love. And Lauren Parrott, I hear there's a rumor that we have some viewer mail that we get to read on the air. Is that possibly true?
That is very possibly true.
Oh, Lauren, folks, ladies and gentlemen, it's Lauren Parrott from WMTV. Lauren, thank you so
you.
much for our viewer mail this week. Well, Chris, we've got viewer mail, and I think, well, let's first, why don't you take the first one?
Ah, thanks. Anyway, this one comes to us from John T. of Grosse Pointe, who watches Cars in Context on Comcast Cable Channel 915.
That's HD.
Ooh,
Yeah, hold
lucky
on.
you.
Yeah.
Says, Dear Chris, I saw a show you were on where you mentioned the proposal by the Department of Transportation to require event data recorders, so-called black boxes,
We were just
in
talking about
all
that.
cars and light trucks that are manufactured after September 1st of 2014. I've heard challenges to the proposal over privacy concerns, asking that data collected on the driver be protected and prohibiting access to the data without permission of the owners or from a court order. Can you tell me if the black boxes plan is going to happen?
Ooh.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Wait
Of
a
course
minute.
it's going to happen.
But what about privacy?
There is no privacy.
Oh, no. We're going to, folks, we will have to do a show on these black boxes and the insurance.
They will have them. It is going to make it much easier to find out who is in an accident, who's at fault, and the insurance companies again. And all of that stuff I understand, and it is in some ways a protection for the driver involved in an accident.
Okay.
But the problem is
It's going to be
that
used as a financial gain for the companies.
it's very easy. The car companies are just livid about this. They are doing everything they can to protect the information. But it is, as we've seen, I mean, my own website got hacked from the University of Michigan, for God's sakes.
Well, folks, then that could happen to you. You can
So
get
you
hacked.
can get
This is very
hacked.
dangerous. We'll do a show on it. I've got one too. This one comes to us from Maddie B. in St. Clair Shores, who watches Cars in Context on WOW, cable channel 10 out there. He says, Dear John, did I read correctly that New York City decided to make the Nissan NV200 the city's official cab? Why didn't they choose a domestic vehicle to keep our tax money from going into pockets of foreign automakers? Maddie, yes, they did. They absolutely did. The New York officials decided that they want to make this Nissan vehicle their official cab, which means all the cabbies have to toe
Yep.
the line.
That's a
But,
cool little
but here's some good news for you. Just recently, it turns out that the New York City taxi fleet operators have sued the city of New York, saying that the Nissan NV200 is untested. It uses outdated engineering and technology. It does not offer a hybrid or electric, and they don't want it. So they're going to sue the city of New York for picking that car. They want other choices. So maybe, of course, SpongeBob always says, good luck with that. So we hope, we hope they succeed in that. But if you have a question, ladies and gentlemen, that you'd like to see read on the air on Cars in Context, send it to me, jclor at carsandcontext.com, and we'll be sure to get it on the air. Chris, we're out of time again. Another great
jeez.
episode. Every time we have a show, we have topics we have to get next time, but thanks for
Gotta get an
coming in.
hour-long show.
I know. Folks, you can catch Chris Sawyer on thevirtualdriver.com, the best automotive blog on the internet. And if you've missed an episode of Cars in Context, go to Cars in Context TV on YouTube or call the War Memorial for a copy of the show. We appreciate you spending time with us. Remember, knowledge is power. So until next time, I'm your host, John Clor. Thanks for watching.